B-Bad and Brandon.
Record on this.
Cool.
There we go. Welcome to the Platform Podcast. We are very honored to have a very special guest all the way from, correct me if I'm wrong, Oakland, California.
Yeah.
Max Aita. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Audience goes wild for you, bro. How's your day been? You been up to much?
Yeah, same stuff. Just doing a lot of like remote coaching and stuff throughout the day, and then yeah, that's pretty much 90% of my day. Maybe I'll do some writing here and there.
Yep.
Putting together some stuff, but yeah, nothing beyond that really.
Yes.
Because we were talking just before, they're still pretty much in lockdown.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Since March
yeah, we actually
last year.
it started to rain right now, and we had to cancel. So we have to cancel like training when it's raining because everything's outside.
Oh.
So we just had to. My wife's just running around trying to get everyone set up and stop training tonight, and so we've been just kind of praying that we don't get rain every day. This week's supposed to rain like Tuesday through Friday or something like that. So we're hoping that not so bad. We've been lucky though. It's only been a few days we've missed so far. This is like the fourth out of the whole winter. So we'll see what happens.
That's cool. When do you guys go out of lockdown? Is there any word for you guys? Or
who knows?
Sometime between then and now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think I just heard that like this week we're supposed to get some more access to like maybe back inside training at like 10% capacity or something like that. But so I don't know, the extent of what'll happen there.
Yeah. So that's how we kind of got eased back into it after our big lockdown. It was like, we had to head count the gym literally.
Yeah.
Which was it was like, all right, cool. You look like you're almost finished. Fuck, get out. Go home and do go home and do your core work. Don't waste it. Gym floor space time here.
Exactly. I see there's like a commercial gym like a block up the road from us, and they back when they let us go in at 10% capacity back in probably I don't know, last September, they'd have a line of people waiting outside, for an hour.
Fuck.
In each spot was an hour, just like brutal.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Fuck.
It's actually been, surprisingly, it's been pretty good for us because we're the only spot that we know of. Like we're in the back of a CrossFit gym, but the parking lot is massive. The parking lot is probably 4 times the size of the gym itself.
Sick.
So we're able to train everyone out there, and we lucked out in that because we actually have lots of people coming contacting us, and every session we can fit in is filled. So it's been a blessing in disguise for us.
Yeah. Sick. Maybe once you're allowed to open again, the outdoor gym might have to continue, bro.
I know. I actually like it outside. It's kind of nice, right?
It's
like better than being inside the gym, but we'll see what happens. I mean,
is it cold over there? Is it cold where you guys
chilly,
are?
Yeah. It's Oakland, so it's like got a real Mediterranean climate. It's only it really fluctuates between like I'd say like 55 and 85 like year round. Right. It's almost always like in the 70s here, 60s, 70s. So it's usually really nice.
So I got a client in the UK. He's locked down, obviously. And he's training outdoors, and like it's fucking snowing in the background.
Yeah.
Poor bastard.
Yeah.
He keeps telling me his hands fucking hurt holding the bar because it's so cold. I was like, I don't give a fuck. Still do hook grip.
Yeah. So when I grew up in Montana, we had a gym in our like little garage. We rented an apartment that had like a 4-car garage that had like sectioned off, and it was 3 weightlifters. It was 3 of us, and we went out there and like put some sheetrock up and insulation in it, but it was like a really shitty spot. It was like the one garage that was on the corner that got no sunlight at all. And we would train in there, and it would be like 20 below zero inside the gym. And so we would bring the bars inside the apartment at night after training, and so they were warm. We'd haul it all down outside into the gym and start training, and it was a wild time. It was a ton of fun. I mean, we were just like, we never even thought about it. It was just like, oh, it's super cold and it sucks, but like, we were just like, we're gonna train.
We're still fucking training.
Damn.
It was funny because the driveway, the actual garage had a slope to it, right?
Oh, good.
And so you'd squat and you'd be tilted a little when you squatted, but the condensation in the air would the moisture in the air would condense on the bar.
Oh,
And
shit.
so when you're squatting, the weights would slide on one side of the barbell.
So that level you out. Your feet are like this, but the weight's like
Well,
this.
everything was going to one side. So the whole thing was sliding over, right? We only ever did like, singles or doubles. So nothing ever fell off, but it always got close.
Old school core stability exercises.
Yeah, right.
You guys actually started the bamboo bar.
Yeah, your bamboo bar. Before you were doing it.
Yeah, we had like a squat rack that was made out of like old plumbing pipes.
Oh,
it was cool. It was like it was one height. I was the shortest guy, so it was like it was fit like kind of was a little too high for me and a little too low for the other two guys.
Yep.
But that worked. I mean, it was great. I mean, that whole squat rack probably cost $25.
Fuck, that's good.
That is an absolute bargain.
Fuck yeah,
mate. We have a little bit of a segment to start off the show. Now, for those who don't know you, we have a question, which is 21 words, who you are and what you do.
21 words.
We count the words and the sound. So just in case you start humming and ahhing, bro, we'll be counting them.
Let's see. Weightlifting, powerlifting, SuperTotal coach with multiple national champions, Pan American champions, American record holders.
You have 3 words left.
Two.
Loves weightlifting.
Oh, good finish. Good save to the finish there, mate.
Damn, bro.
We love asking that question just to see the hint of anxiety that comes over people's face.
Yeah.
You definitely felt it.
And that's about usually the only plan we have for the podcast is that first question.
Perfect.
And then God knows what happens next. Well, so what happened first for you, bro? Like everyone's got their first story of lifting weights. Was it that garage you were talking about, or
no?
Was it for you?
The first memory, so when I was 12 years old living in Montana, growing up there, I wasn't into winter sports or anything. I was never really into any sports, but I was always like super into being strong. I always wanted to be strong in some way, shape, or form, I love like reading comics and stuff, and it was like a big thing. When I turned 12, I saw the 1996 Olympic Games on TV, Atlanta Olympics, and the only thing they showed that I can remember of weightlifting was Naeem Suleimanoglu, his third attempt clean and jerk, which won him his 3rd consecutive gold medal. And I saw that, and I was like, Naeem, like, that's what I want to be, a weightlifter. That's the thing you're supposed to be. Yes. And so fast forward a few years later, I mean, we had my dad would get those I don't know if they have them there, but like the plastic concrete weights that
you stack them on the bar, spin the things on.
Right. He'd get one for Christmas, and work out with it once. And then I would go down there with my brother, and we would like mess around on it. And I was always a little bit stronger than him, even though he was about 5 years older than me. He was a little taller than me and just not super athletic, but mess around with weights like that. I get into around high school or so, and I connect with like a gym teacher who's like they have like a weight training class, and I scheduled all of my classes. I was not a good student. because I didn't pay attention. I would like go to the exams and do great. I get A's in exams, and it was easy. I knew all this stuff. I paid attention, but I just didn't give a shit about doing any homework or anything. I just wanted to work out. So I had scheduled all these classes to be like, first period, like 7 a.m. early before normal school, weight training. Then gym class was like the next one. And my gym teacher was like, you can just go and do the weightlifting if you want. So then I have like this 2-hour session in the morning. Then at lunchtime, I go and train. And then in the evening, like the last period of the class or last period of the day, like I had that set up where I could just do whatever I wanted, and I just go and work out. So I was like in high school, like from freshman year, just training like 3 times a day.
You're doing 3 days a kid already.
Yeah, just everything. I just loved it. I just fucking loved it. But I connected with the university, had like a sort of weightlifting team thing, and I contacted them. It was actually really funny. I looked up the coach who like the guy in charge was to contact, and he lived on my street, maybe like 4 blocks away. So I just sent an email and I sent a phone call. I called the dude. I walk over to his house and he's like, yeah, sure, you can be on the if you can maybe come up there, but come by here on Saturday and we'll see, we'll kind of do a little test. So I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be cool. Like, like test. I show up to his house and his driveway is just filled with fucking gravel. And he's like, hey, there's a wheelbarrow there. You help me move all this gravel to my backyard.
Get out of it.
Right? So I'm like, I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Like I was super, I would have done whatever, right? If he was like, you got to eat some shit, I would be like, can I put some salt on it? But he was just like super, he didn't really give a shit, but he was just like, could see that like, oh, this guy's going to try hard.
Yep.
So then I go to the actual university, connect with a coach there named Justin Braun. He's like the strength coach at Montana State University at the time. He's like, yeah, we have a team, but there's like 3 guys. It's me, it'd be me, then these other 3 guys. One of them was just a student. He was like a regular guy just trying it out. Yep. And these other 2 twins, these twins, Bert and Tom, and they were hilarious. They were just like super talented, but they just never tried, never applied themselves. Anyways, so I get into this and I start doing it, and like, a week or so into it, he sees like I'm really interested and I want to train. And so he brings me about 60 miles to this other town where his coach is there. And I meet this guy. This guy's name is Steve Goff, and he's like a former Bay Area resident. So he lived where I am now before he retired to Montana. Yep. And he was super successful as a coach. He had maybe a dozen guys, snatching in the 160 range, clean jerking over 200, a bunch of national champions. His son was at the 96 Olympics and, basically got like first place in the B session. Wow. So he was like really good, top 15 guy, top 10 guy, probably American record holder. But I meet Steve, and Steve tells me that at the 96 Olympics, with the one I saw with Naeem, he was like the chaperone for them. So they would show up, and like every team would get a chaperone to sort of, take care of anything like getting, water or whatever, kind of just somebody there to sort of be in the back room. And he got that position because he obviously had, some pull in the group. So it was cool to have connected with him and like, hey, I met this guy, through this one thing I saw, this Naeem. I was like, that's the guy I want to be with or want to do. That came out wrong. That's the guy I want to try and emulate.
Yeah, buddy.
I love weightlifters, man. I mean, I love them. But anyways, so I was like, this cool, like full circle thing. Like this is the guy that got me into it. Now I'm like training with this coach who is, he totally ascribes to the Bulgarian system of training and this like ridiculous training. So I went from like in high school, like, I'm gonna train like 3 days, 3 times a day, to training with Goff. My best front squat before I met him was like 150. The first day I trained with him, I front squatted like 165. So it was just like the energy, right? It's insane, right? Yeah. 6 weeks from that point, I front squatted 217.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So it was just like, it went from 3 sessions a day to 8 hours a day. And he was retired and I was, a high school kid. So I just went over there, it was all summer, right? And just trained all day. Light. And just, I would show up at 7 in the morning and go home at like 6 at night. And we just trained snatch, clean and jerk, squat every day, just like nuts. It was the best, it was the best time of my life.
Fucking hell.
You can see your face.
You just stop for a couple of meal breaks and then go back out and hit some more fucking singles.
Yeah. And I was like really bad. I was a really shitty lifter. Like, I mean, I was strong. I always had strong legs. It was, I remember the first time squatting, like doing, probably close to 300 pounds.
Yep.
So I was like always strong, but it was like, that model of training doesn't lend itself well to like becoming, teaching you to become a great technician or so like I was rugged. My shoulders got destroyed that way and I was just beat to shit. But, to kind of go even further, like fast forward a few years later, maybe 6 years later, Ivan Abajev, the head coach of the Bulgarian national team, is going to live in California and train people. And so, you know, they wanted like, you know, some $1,000 a month or something to go train with this guy.
Yep.
So I was like, that's Naeem's coach. I have to go.
That's
like,
where I got to go.
And yeah. So I had done a bunch of odd jobs and always done like construction work in the summers and stuff. And, you know, as I was growing up. And so I was like, okay, this is cool. I'll help my friend. He's got some work where we like dug out a basement. It was like, you know, a 6 foot deep basement. We dug it out to 8 feet. We dug it like, it was insane. It was an insane amount of work with like, you know, 5-gallon buckets all day just to make, you know, I think I made maybe like $3,000 or $4,000. And I was like, that's great. I can go there for 12 weeks and train and hopefully like have enough money to eat.
Yep. Were you still trained at the time while you were digging holes?
Yeah. So I would train afterward. I wouldn't train as much. I would like do the work, then train for, you know, 3 hours at night.
Yeah.
I was actually surprisingly, I was in great shape. You know, I wasn't destroyed. I mean, I was young enough still that I could survive that. But I get down there and it's exactly like with golf. It's just like this unrelenting 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day of training, just nuts.
Wow.
And I was broken by that time because it was like going from, you know, a really bad training system to like, you know, a guy, golf was like passionate. He loved to help people. He was just super into it, but he's a Marine, you know, he was ex-cop. He was a hard ass. I mean, he was just straight up a fucking hard ass, but awesome kind of guy, right? So the kind of person you want to fight hard for.
Yeah.
And you go from that to like a Bulgarian guy who's got no soul and doesn't care if you're alive or dead, right? Like he's just a black hole of emotion.
He just needs weight moved.
Yeah. And it was just like, I remember I was training my ass off, right? And for maybe like 4 or 5 weeks, I was killing it. All the Bulgarians were telling me like, you know, you gotta slow down. Like there's a thing in Bulgaria, this thing we do. It's like sandbagging. Like you bullshit your workouts so they seem harder than they are so that you can survive.
So you can survive. Fuck.
Yeah. And they had a word for it. It's called krushka. It's like, okay, so like you krushka the workout so it's like easier. So you maybe if you could do, you know, 150 today, you make 140 look like really hard. But he's just like, okay, that's enough. Leave it there. And of course, you know, being, you know, my early 20s and just like some dumb
There's no
kid,
krushka.
Yeah, like, fuck this. You guys are pussies. Right? So, you know, 6 weeks into it, my front squat goes from like 220 down to 70. Like I can't even stand up with 70. Like I take out of the rack, I squat down. I just like everything in my mind and legs and body are just like, oh, fucking quit. You're done. Like you quit. But leading up to this whole thing, he's loving me because he's like, oh, this guy wants to train hard. He's not lazy. Like this guy's great, you know, not lazy, meaning he wants to train for 8 hours, not 6.
Yep. Damn them like, lazy fucking trainers at 6 hours.
And you're just like, this is fucking great. Like I'm fucking killing it here. These other guys are lazy. I'm doing it. They're all sitting back this whole time, like knowing like, okay, like
they knew what your future was.
They know it's coming. Yeah. So he's like, you're great. You have what it takes to be, you know, Olympic champion. Like he's like fucking building you up. And when you hear that from this guy who's had a dozen Olympic champions, you're like, yes, I know it. So I come in that day, take that 70 kilo front squat, get molested by the bar, and he looks at me, looks at all the other guys at the gym, and I'm just like broken. And he literally looks at me and he goes, oh, he will be Olympic champion of no training. And that's it. It's fucking over. Like, oh, you give up on one session? Oh, you're garbage. I'm done with you.
Wow.
It was just that moment of like, oh, fuck it. All right, well, but it's cool because like, yeah, it brings you back to reality where you're like, yeah, you are human. Like you gotta, you know, I mean, you gotta stop. Like you gotta realize what's going on. But that whole experience was invaluable. It was amazing to have gone there and like had this like whole journey that was like, you know, that basically went full circle where it was like, yeah, kid in Montana goes, you know, sees this fucking champion, this amazing performance, the people involved in that behind the scenes, getting to connect with each one of these people along the way, and like kind of coming around to be like, holy shit, this is really cool to have done that, you know? And so that was like the extent of it. I mean, obviously I lifted after that. I ended up getting injured pretty severely. I jammed my wrist on a clean and dislocated the lunate bone.
Fuck.
And that wasn't so bad that it took 13 months before they actually put the bone back in.
What? So you were still clean, jerk and snatch and all those things with it?
Well, it was like a grapefruit at the time. It was swollen up huge. And so I didn't, you know, I went to the doctor. They did an MRI or X-ray. They didn't see it on the X-ray.
Fuck.
And, you know, months have gone by and the swelling has gone down, but it's extremely painful still. But I was just like, you know, I mean, you know where I came from. So I was like, well, I guess I should start snatching now. And I actually, you know, within like the span of like 3 workouts, I went from the empty bar to 130 kilos.
Yeah, good. Just a slow progression.
Yeah, right. I was like, oh, well, she feels great. I'll just go up. So I snatched like 130. And the next day I come in, I snatch 110. I feel this like zipper like feeling through my wrist, and I'm like, that doesn't seem right. So I go back to another doctor, and they're like, your fucking wrist is messed up, and that zipper feeling is the bone has been wearing away on all the tendon structure that connects to your fingers. So if you don't have this operated on, you'll lose your fingers and your hand, and they'll just be they won't work. And so, you know, long story short, to summarize, it took months and months. They, you know, canceled my insurance. I couldn't actually get the thing fixed. And, you know, so it was pretty rough. I mean, there's a lot of shit that went down. I ended up borrow all of the money from a client I was coaching and from people I knew to pay for it. This is like 2009. So it's pre Obamacare. So like now you just go in and, you know, they can't turn you down for insurance. You just get insurance and cover. But then it was like, oh, it's already a condition you have. We won't cover that. You know, and your employer wasn't able to, you know, just cancel your insurance at the time. And so, so that kind of ended my lifting career, and that was it. I couldn't come back from that. I couldn't snatch or clean and jerk again. So I got into, so I was like, you know, what do you do when you can't lift, you're not athletic? Well, I became a power lifter.
Yes.
So I started squatting. Like I came back from that surgery, and, you know, it's like super depressed. I was like depressed for months and months and months. It was over.
Could you do any training after the surgery, or literally just nothing, like
nothing
safety
initially,
bar or anything like that?
Well, so we didn't even have a safety bar. So I just took some weightlifting straps and strapped them onto the bar and held it like this. And I squatted up to like probably 320 kilos that way.
With a fucking strap.
Yeah, it was funny. I mean, at first I squatted up to 300 because all I did, that was kind of a weird time because all I did was squat. I couldn't do anything else. And I was nervous to do any kind of pulling or pressing because they told me, hey, your hand's going to fall apart. So you should do nothing with it and just, be happy that you have your fingers.
Fuck.
So I was like, well, I'll just squat. And so all I did was squat, and I just did the same thing as I would have done, so I squatted every day, 7, 8, 10 times a day, maximum all the time. There was a stretch of about 6 months where I squatted 300 kilos at least 3 or 4 times every day.
Holy
and it was just like stupid training,
Jesus.
But it was all I knew at the time. I was really ignorant to I knew of other stuff. I obviously knew there was other ways to train. I was smart enough to have read a ton of stuff, and I knew things, but it was one of those things like, well, this is what I've always done, so I guess I'll just do this.
What was your body weight back then when you squatted?
I was about 100 kilos back then.
Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, when all you do is squat, of course you're going to be good at it. Of course you're going to be good at squatting. Yeah. And then I started trying other, I'll try deadlifting, and I tested the hand out and eventually started bench pressing. And my excuse is that my bench press is terrible because my wrist was always messed up, but probably could have trained it harder too.
Skipped maybe one squat session out of the 30 per week and thrown a bit more bench in there.
Exactly. And so eventually I ended up, doing some powerlifting, and then I was lucky enough to connect with Mark Bell and Jesse Burdick at the time, and And that was like all that existed around me in the Bay Area was those guys doing meets. And there was no USAPL. It was just like SPF. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll do this. This is cool. And I didn't have the same passion for it. It was fun to do. It was fun to be, you know, competing again and doing that stuff. But ultimately, at some point, I just kind of moved on to coaching more and devoting most of my time to coaching. So
what was training with those lads like back then?
So I did a lot of the West Side stuff for a little bit with Jesse. And, you know, it's different because, you know, the volume in the Bulgarian system is really low. Like the total number of reps you're doing is pretty low. I mean, even if you're training 10 times a week or 20 times a week, you're doing singles every time, right? In West Side, it was like, I would say the volume was higher, but the volume was like almost entirely single joint accessory movements that were really low average intensity. So like on one side of the spectrum, you know, the average weight of the bar, if you counted up all your reps, was super high in the Bulgarian system. Your average weight of the barbell, I only ever warmed up I had these 50-kilo bumpers. So we'd put 50s on the bar and I left them on the bar. So everyone knew not to like take them off because it was just to max the squat. And so there was one rack at the end of the gym that had 50s on it. And my first rep every day, I would just do 120. So I go in, squat 120, 170, 220, 270, and then maybe 300, maybe stop. Maybe that was it.
And then that's the session.
Yeah, that was it. And then come back an hour later. And so like my whole, you know, the average weight there is, you know, probably like 250, you know, 220 to 250 kilos. So it's like super heavy, but low volume. The West Side stuff was like, you know, super high volume. It's like hundreds and hundreds of reps, but it's so low intensity. Like, you know, you're doing maybe 100 kilos average. And then there was so much rotation of exercises. I lost a lot of fitness. I felt like I got much less conditioned to do heavy squats, benches, and deadlifts. And so, you know, it was interesting to try, but it was not successful for me. I struggled with it. I did okay. I mean, I lifted, you know, decent numbers. But then, you know, probably a few months or maybe a year or two after that, I connected with Boris Shako, and he started writing programs for me. At first, actually, another stupid story lifting, but before that, I connected with a friend of mine who was a single ply junior world record in the squat with the IPF, and he was super successful. And he had done a lot of Shako training, and so I connected with him, and he gave me some like Russian Shako plans that were written out, and it was like 5 days a week. And these were like for master sport, like international class. So they were a lot of volume. They were each, I want to say they were around 1,500 or 2,000 reps a month. And so it was a lot, but it was all, you know, like it was really manageable. And it was like, you know, between like 60 and 90%, basically all your work's between 70 and 90%. So being the guy I was and where I came from, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I like this. I'll do this in the morning and then I'll do it again in the afternoon.
Of course you fucking did.
So I did, you know, squat, bench, squat, you know, morning, and then came back at night, squat, bench, squat. And I loved to train. I love to train fast. And so I would just do like a superset. So I'd like do the first squat and the benches together. So like one squat, then I'd lay down and bench. And I just was like, that's just how I like to train. I just like to move around and go quick. And anyways, you know, did that. That was probably the strongest I ever felt. I felt amazing doing that. I love that. But then I ended up contacting him, and he was like, oh, that's too much. Let's, you know, dial it back and do different. And he wrote some really good programs, and he was cool in that, like, you ask questions and get some good feedback about like how to program. And I really, like, that to me was the best style of training I ever did. It was super successful. It just really was very sensible. And I enjoyed that kind of training because it was coming from the like super, super heavy Bulgarian stuff. You're mentally exhausted all the time because you have to psych yourself up every single session all the time for lifts. And it almost feels like you're just in this state of exhaustion, not physically, because like even if it's a maximum weight, you recover from that pretty quickly. But like the fact that you're like having anxiety about every fucking rep you're gonna do, like, oh my god, is 270 kills, it's gonna kill me again. It's gonna feel bad. Like, can I make it? And you know, and then going from the other side of like, this weight feels so light, and I just feel like I'm doing like almost bodybuilding workouts, to like, how am I going to lift something heavy?
Yeah.
Shakeo's great because it's like this perfect balance of that intensity and volume, you know, culminating in this place where like you just felt super strong, super technically solid. You know, everything was dialed in all the time. It felt great, you know.
Sick. What did Shako say to you when you said, oh yeah, he would have said, I assume you've been doing some training already, and you say, yes, I've been following your program, the Shako thing. But what I've been doing is I did a morning Shako and then a nighttime Shako. What did he say to that?
You know, he just said it was too much. He was like, that's too much volume for you. It's not necessary. You know, which is like, okay, like I kind of gathered that at some point. I'm like, yeah, this is probably more than I need to do. I was, you know, as much fun as it was exhausting. And that's coming from someone who was training, who had been used to training with Bulgarians. Like, it wasn't like, it was the most exhausting training you could do. I would, you know, it's like you're doing like 2.5 to 3 hours in the morning and then again at night, and like quick, not like a 3-hour workout where you do 2 exercises. And I was doing 3 exercises plus accessories twice a day. And, you know, it was brutal, but it was a ton of fun. I mean, I love that. I love training like that.
Did you talk about Boris being very open about, you know, if you have any questions, you'd ask it. Has he been a big or the main influencer on your coaching career?
No, not so much. I mean, you know, I would ask a lot of questions about the training and that kind of stuff. It was translated a lot, so it wasn't like great. I got a copy of his book and read through it. You know, so there's, you know, I mean, like we all know there's like a ton of philosophies in training, and the problem from back in the day when I started lifting was that people would see workouts or training programs or coaches and see all that stuff, and you know, you'd have to sort of interpret that and figure out what was going on. Why is this program constructed the way it is? Why does somebody put, you know, 5 sets of 3 versus 3 sets of 5, and what does this mean? And so you're always looking at like, you know, the details of how something works. And it's kind of like if you tried to reverse engineer a car and someone gives you like a spark plug, you're like, you have like no idea, like, well, like if you've never seen any of this before, like, what is that? Why, what is this for? You know, to extrapolate from that spark plug that like it ignites fuel and that drives the crankshaft. And, you know, it's like, that's really difficult. So I think people were in this place where you'd see a workout or a training session and try to extrapolate the principles of training from that session of training, right? Like, well, why is it this many reps or this many sets? You know, what does that mean? How does it relate to other things? And where does that come from? And so, you know, Boris's information, his book, you know, the Russian manuals that were always translated for weightlifting, they were pretty good in that they gave you a sort of sense of like, hey, here's this overall picture as to like why things go the way they do, why we build programs like this. But without somebody to sit there who's built the program and explain like, well, you know, I wrote it like this because that's my decision making. I just was like, I like 3s, so we do 3, or whatever it is. It's hard to gather those principles. So from to sort of answer your question, the biggest like influence actually came a lot later when I met, you know, when I started working with Chad Smith and Mike Israetel. Those guys wrote a book called The Scientific Principles of Training, which to me was like it's like the Bible of training, because it suddenly gives you context for why any decision should be made in training. And it comes down to principles, right? You know, specificity, you know, fatigue management, these things. Why is it that you build a program like you do? Well, it's got to be based on these principles. And you could look at any program and deduce it down into its principles, right? Westside adheres to the same principles as, you know, Boris Shako or Bulgarian method. It's just you have to distill it down to like, well, how do the decisions put into this program, you know, how do they manifest themselves in the principles, right? How is specificity displayed in a Shako program? How is fatigue management, you know, implemented in a Shako program? It's the same with Westside, the same with these things. So you can look at it and say, oh, I understand the principles of how something works, how a program should work. And I can look at any program and say, oh, I get it. I understand why these would be the way they are. You can also quickly tell where programs are shitty and they fall apart because you can say, look, like, you know, the specificity as a principle is the most important thing. This program has, you know, is lacking specificity. There's nothing in here that's squat, bench, and deadlift with a straight bar, right? Or there's very non-specific training here. Or, you know, fatigue management, like, hey, Bulgarian system, there's no fatigue management. You just
I was going to say, where was the fatigue management for that one? Just that Bulgarian word. You just had to sandbag a session or two.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Fatigue management is bullshit, right? Bullshit your way through workouts. But yeah, so it's like, that was like major paradigm shift in the way I coached, the way I wrote programming, the whole way I looked at things was to finally sit down and say, okay, your approach to training has to be principle based. When you look at good programs, they, you know, the principles manifest themselves in those programs adequately, and, you know, and they're well thought out. And so, you know, it was like, that was a huge shift for me. And that's also why you could see, like, oh, that's why Shaco worked well for me. And that's why, you know, this system did what it did. And that's why, you know, back when I squatted, you know, with my first coach, when I went from 165 to 217, like, of course I did. You know, it was just super specific and super heavy, and I was able to recover enough. But after 6 weeks, you know, it took me over a year to get down. That, you know, it took me over a year to go from 217 to 230, right? So it was like, oh, it makes sense, right? You're just all this adaptive resistance along the way, and so and that was kind of the big thing for me.
And how'd you connect with Chad and Mike Israel? How'd that partnership?
So, funny story. somewhere in the middle of all that, around 2006, before I moved to California to train with the Bulgarians, I was kind of in this place where I was like, I was not going anywhere, right? This was my lifting wasn't going up. My lifting was just stagnant. I was frustrated, and Justin Braun, the guy who kind of got me into it at university, was like, hey, here's this guy, you know, I've been following a lot. He's writing a lot of really great stuff. He's posting all his training logs. You guys remember Elite FTS?
Yep.
I don't know if they're probably still around. But I was like, oh, this is cool, right? So he connected with this guy, James Smith, and he used to post under the pseudonym The Thinker. But, you know, so I was like, oh, this is cool. I connected with him, and he was living in Northern California, and he brought me out, and he's like, yeah, why don't you come out here and train, and let's do this. And he was very, very intelligent, super smart guy, to a point that it was like difficult to communicate with him sometimes.
That's why he was the thinker.
Yeah, right. He did a podcast with Mark Bell, and it was like a 2-part series, but it was like watching him on there is comical to me and to Chad, because so I trained with him. It was great. You know, at some point I had to leave for some family stuff, and I went back, and it was good. He ended up working with Chad like a couple of years later when Chad opened up his facility in Orange County. And that's kind of how Chad and I knew of each other. So he would tell Chad stories about like stuff I had done, and kind of knew of me, and I had followed Chad on Elite. And so, you know, like we kind of knew each other there, and we knew each other from powerlifting meets. So I would go to do a meet at, you know, at Super Training, and Chad would come up and do one. And then when I'd go to weightlifting meets, Chad was like sponsoring some lifters, and he would see me and my wife, and we were the only people he knew, right? Yeah. So he was like, oh, like, you know, friendly powerlifter people, I'll go talk to them. And so we connected a lot that way. And then, you know, I eventually moved down there, you know, temporarily to train and coach people and stuff. But, you know, he knew James because we had worked together. But James's podcast on Mark Bell's thing is hilarious. You should check it out, because it's like the guy speaks like he's a robot almost.
I've seen it. It's another level. You got to watch it a few times.
The comments are hilarious. I mean, he got a lot of shit for that, and it's like that's not really how he is, you know, in person. But it's like a lawyer. Like, he doesn't want to say anything that could possibly be construed as like incorrect, you know, by the syntax of the way he's saying it. But yeah, super smart guy, and that's kind of how Chad and I connected.
And so was it just coaching from then, like you guys connected, and then because obviously for people listening, you know, Chad began Juggernaut training, and And then obviously you've had massive input over that. You guys host a podcast now, and it's just fucking taken off.
Yeah. So I mean, Chad owns JTS. I just work for Chad. We've done a podcast, a bunch. Recently, haven't done as many, obviously, from everything that's gone on. We don't really travel as much anymore, but Chad's influence was huge because I remember having a conversation with him before I even went down there, where he called me up, is asking about like, hey, we want to do like a Bulgarian program in this like thing we're offering, and he's asking me questions about it, and I think we kind of hit it off because he was like, well, what would you do if you were going to write this for people? And I said, the problem with the Bulgarian system is everybody wants to do a version of it, like let's adapt it to ourselves. And the thing is like, well, what it was worked because of what it was. And as soon as you start modifying it for somebody who's not in that system, then it's like, why don't you just make super smart corrections and do something different that's better? And so like, I said that to him, and he was kind of like, oh yeah, I get it. Like, what's the point of like taking a really shitty, it's like buying a fucking shitty old beat up car and putting a super nice engine in it, right?
Yeah.
Like what's the point, right? Like, start with something that's good at first. And so that whole thing to me, I think we kind of connected over that, and he realized like I knew a lot more about training and what made sense than this like, okay, we just do that program on this day and it works. So
do you miss training heavy every single like 3 sessions a day?
I miss being healthy enough to do that, but it's funny. I think I talk about this all the time with friends of mine. I'm like, I cannot believe the amount of energy that I put into what I did. Like, if I had put that same kind of energy into like starting a business or something, I'd be a multimillionaire right now. Like, I was like, I mean, the amount of effort and energy every single day, no matter how tired I was, the pushing and doing that stuff. I think like now it's like I go in the gym, I want to be gone in an hour. Like an hour is like a long time. So I train the same way. I'm just like, I'll superset like squats and bench and all the accessories all at once, and I'll just go until I'm too tired to go. And so it's like, it's like funny that I can't even imagine what it was like, being 20 years old again, like training that hard.
How much food were you eating back then?
That was my
so even more ridiculous, like I would go in when I was just squatting, and I would leave my house in Oakland and drive to the gym. It was like maybe 20 minutes away, and I would get a large coffee and like a small scone, and that's what I would eat and
that was your fuel.
That was it. And then I'd squat and squat 3 times, 2 times, then have lunch, and like the lunch would be like a fucking Subway sandwich. Yeah, I was pretty bad about nutrition. I was just really bad with it. I mean, I would not eat enough for sure. And I was just training too hard. It was just like, it was like 90% like mental toughness, because I came from golf, who was just like Marine, who was just like,
just
one day you may have to strength. Yeah. He was the kind of guy who would say shit like, one day you may have to kill somebody. I just want to lift weights. Like I don't need to know what it's like to fucking murder someone. I don't need to know what it's like to kill a man.
I don't want to know
with my bare hands, right? And like he was like a Marine in Vietnam, like on the front line. He was a hard fucking dude. He would make people do insane workouts too. Like his son Tom, he'd have him do like 200 back raises every day, like shit like that, where it was just like, that was like, just you have to do that to just like, that's bare minimum. Just crazy. I mean, crazy shit. Everything was intense, everything was hard, everything was life or death. So
Fucking hell.
Do you feel confident you could kill a man now, if you could, now that you've gone through that system?
Oh my god, there's no way. You get through it, and it's, I mean, I will say this, in that house that we lived in, the 3 of us in that super cold house, one of the dudes that was there is now has gone through, he is a Navy SEAL. He's like a sniper, and then he went and became like a sniper instructor. So it clearly worked for him. Like he went all the way through, and he's a total badass. So yeah, not myself.
Oh, fucking hell, bro. And what does training look like for you these days? Just like you said, you try and hit an hour a day every other day? Or...
Yeah, I mean, I like training quick. I love to training with the Russian style, the Shako stuff. So
yep.
I'll do a lot of the same kind of thing where I'll just, I'll plan out like, okay, I'm going to do, X amount of reps in the squat at this percentage and, just time myself, 30 seconds to a minute rest. Chad built a program just like this. He'll like a bridge program where it's like a 24 reps at 70%, sets of 3 to 6, just whatever feels good each set. And so the goal is like just super high quality movement, get in quick, fast, do everything, keep my heart rate up and just train fast like that so that I can get a bunch in.
Yeah, right. Sweet. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So would you say with all that huge experience and all those cool people you've met over the years, would you call it the Max method now? for your own crew that you look after, or
part of my like rebelling against that stuff is to I try to not make anything proprietary.
Yep.
So my goal is to just define things exactly as they are, right? So probably even to the detriment. Like I hate seeing exercises that have like a flashy name to them, like I think of what James Smith would say, where it'd be like, okay, this exercise is a snatch from the hang below the knee, and other people would call it like, oh, it's hang snatches, or like I would say like a snatch with a slow start, and you see it everywhere else is like tempo snatches, and you're like, I don't want a name because I don't want it to become this like defined thing like the Bulgarian system or the Russian system. And so probably to my own detriment, I'm always like in this place of like, the program's just a program. There's nothing special about it. Everybody else has like cool names to their program, right? The Jack and Tan or the whatever it is, right? And it's way flashier and I'm sure it's better for sales, but it's definitely this thing where I'm like, I just want it to be like, get away from that shit as much as I can.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And you said a lot of your clients these days are mostly online, well, and obviously given current circumstances, forced online. Is it a broad mix between weightlifters and powerlifters?
So I have probably like 50-50 weightlifters, powerlifters, and then probably a third of that is like people that do both together. Which is actually like, that's a lot of fun because that's a kind of program where the outcome's not nearly as important as like the enjoyment of the training. We're powerlifting, weightlifting, like if you got to do 8 sets of squat today, like to get better, that's what we have to do. If in weightlifting, same thing, right? It's like, well, you just have to do these things because that's what's going to make you better. In SuperTotal and do it both together, it's cool because like, oh, okay, like let's train more for powerlifting now. And so you have a lot more leeway to just kind of make like more interesting, kind of enjoyable programs. Whereas the other two, it's kind of like, not that you don't want them to be enjoyable, but like it's basically by the numbers a lot of times, right? It's like, well, we gotta do these, we gotta push like this.
Yeah, so. SuperTotal's cool. It'd be an interesting concept to have a SuperTotal comp too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we've actually had I've seen a bunch. We've had a few people do a bunch of them. Meg Scanlon's probably the best by far of the females I've coached. She did the Arnold. She did the weightlifting meet one day, and then the next day did the powerlifting meet. She's psychotic because she cut weight for both of them.
Get out of it.
I've never seen anyone cut weight twice in a weekend, and I didn't even know she was going to do it. I thought she was just going to cut for the weightlifting, but she decided to cut for the powerlifting too. And so, like, she's just nuts, but super good. She holds the world record in the IPF at the 57 kilo squat. And at the time, the bench, but I think that was broken a little bit later. But I mean, she's a tank, right? She's another person who just trains like nuts, like, marathons, triathlon, all that shit, and then did powerlifting too. And then on the men's side, we have James, who's done both. He's like the complete opposite. He'll do like 1 rep and be gassed out for the second rep, like super, the most explosive man on the earth, but has zero endurance. But yeah, I've had the SuperTotal stuff's a ton of fun. I mean, it's a brutal event, it's a brutal weekend, but it'd be cool to see that kind of become a little more mainstream and maybe find a format that works where it's a little bit quicker. You don't take all 9 attempts in power lifts. Maybe maybe 2 attempts of everything and kind of
Yep.
condense it or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be
That's an interesting concept.
a
for
really
sure.
cool thing to see as
Yeah.
a hit and a giggle, I think, or even making it a bit more serious. I mean, I did 2 powerlifting meets in 2 days. I was that beat me up. I did a Saturday 3 lift and then a push pull on the Sunday.
You benched 2
Yeah,
PRs
how'd it
in
go?
2
Yeah,
days.
and I did 2
Really?
PRs on the bench, bro.
Damn.
Yeah,
That's
and
great.
I missed last deady on my first day, which probably helped me for fatigue the next day because I didn't actually get it off the ground. And it was 100% my fault because I YOLO'd it, not paying attention to what my total was.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
So I thought I was on the 650 total, no problems, but turns out it was 647.
Oh,
Something,
shit.
645.
I remember that.
So I shouldn't have jumped so fucking high.
Right.
But
a
the
little bit would have made it.
I remember that too because I was like, why? Like, why?
It was 272. I wanted 600 pounds.
I'm like, you haven't hit 650, but in your head you had.
In my head, I already did. I was sweet.
I'm looking at the computer, be like, it says 645 though.
It wasn't until about 2 lifters out I'd realized what I'd fucking done. I was like,
Oh, shit.
fucked it. And then the next day, PR'd the bench, and then I did an equipped deadlift just to be fucking different.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I always wish like when I was more inclined to do it all and a little bit healthier that like I had done more different things,
Yep.
like not CrossFit, but like, maybe tried strongman or something like that.
Yep.
Just for fun. I mean, just do some things here and there, but I was just like all weightlifting, all powerlifting, just go until you break. And then that's the end of your career.
Fuck. I feel like you and strongman would be an animal with that mindset.
Absolutely.
When I was younger, but I was so small. I mean, I was like 5'7", 5'8", like just not, not heavy, not super, not big like you would have needed to be back then.
Yep.
It's all weight classes now, I think, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like I've had a dabble in strongman, and
looks like a hoot.
It's fun, but it's a different level of fatigue to anything I've experienced in powerlifting. Yeah. Holy fuck, I was cooked for like a good week.
Doing something heavy for a minute long.
Probably didn't
doing.
Probably didn't help. I entered a week out and didn't really train. Who knows?
Yeah.
So who's your favorite lifter these days? Do you follow much powerlifting and obviously airlifting, ollie lifting and stuff like that?
I have not followed a ton of powerlifting recently. I mean, I would say like the one guy I keep kind of noticing, and obviously is like John Hack. He's
he's a freak, bro.
Strong.
Oh, dude.
He's just unbelievable. And then a lot of like IPF or USAPL people. I'll follow like Bryce and Taylor Atwood, and these kind of people that they just kind of you see at the meets, But I've definitely like I used to know everybody and every name and all these things. And I followed it super intensely when I was doing it. And then as I kind of got to be more of a coach, I was so focused on the people I was working with and the people they were fighting against. I kind of lost a lot of that interest in following people for the spectacle, right?
Yep.
I mean, to date how long ago it was, I remember looking up who Dan Green was because he posted he had at the time he had done a meet at SuperTotal or a super training, and he had squatted like 600-ish, benched 407, and maybe pulled like high sixes, and I was like, I think I could beat this guy. To show how long, I was like, I think I could beat him, right? And then of course, he comes out with a fucking 1890 total or 2000 total or something, squatting high sevens and benching 500. It's like, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
But yeah. He was, I mean, I've known Dan for years, but it's funny. Like I actually competed against him in weightlifting. He did a weightlifting meet. Yeah, he did a weightlifting meet, like one of them. And I was in that session with him. Some other kid. Actually, the kid who won it, I coach him now. He's in his 30s. But David Garcia, he's a super strong weightlifter. He had a 300 kilo 310 squat, clean and jerk 210, I think 200 to 10. He's a beast. He was a kid back then. He beat me. I was like second, and then Dan was probably like fourth or something like that.
That's it. Just take that.
Yeah. So you beat Dan Green. Just put that on your resume.
That roster, that final scorecard's framed in our home above our bed, so my wife can see it every time. Hey, remember who's where. Right? Of course, David's name's crossed out. Like,
yeah, you can't see that. That's all good.
Yeah.
Mate, and obviously, competitive lifting's a bit behind you these days, but you absolutely must enjoy the coaching aspect of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I actually almost like coaching a little more because you have a totally different perspective on it,
Yep.
If you get the right athlete, if you're working with somebody that has a mentality like yours, it's a ton of fun. You coach all sorts of different personalities. Some people are like king of the gym, and they will fucking put up numbers every week, every Friday, just destroying things. They get on the platform and it's like they're like the biggest pussy you've ever seen. Like they just give up, they just have no fight. And there's other people, you're training them and they're like, they're just like, whatever. You always got to harass them to train hard and push them and drive them in the gym. They get on the platform and it's like they got 20 kilos more in them, and they're just absolute savages, and they just have zero fear. And those are like, it's just fun to like find people that you kind of mesh with their personality.
Yep.
And it's like, for me, it's like, you want somebody who's kind of got like a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They want to beat people because they want to see people suffer.
Yes.
And so it's like, you want that person who's like a little bit of a like sadistic, where they just want to fucking smash somebody. Because that's a person who's willing to do whatever it takes. Like, hey, how about like that extra, let's see that big jump on the third, like let's go for it. And they'll make it, and they'll just put on the bar and make it. I've got a girl like that now who's extraordinarily strong, super talented girl. She cleaned 145 kilos. What? She's Shakesha Johnson, she's a total tank, but she's got that personality in the gym. Definitely leaves a lot to be desired from her training ethic, right? But shows up to the platform on game day, and it's like, where did this fucking person come from? You're just like, you are just absolutely on fire, and just loves to see the people that loves to be underdog, loves to be the one who comes from behind. Nobody really likes them, but she just fucking crushes people. So that's where, as a coach, it's super fun, because you have this chance to like use somebody else's body to make other people feel bad. If that makes sense, right?
That's a good analogy of coaching, bro. I think I like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, my perspective on coaching is not about like, a lot of people, will say all the shit about like, oh, I just love helping people. But like, no, like I really want to fuck people up. I want to like smash somebody, and I'm going to use these people to do it. And that's where it is for me. I just love that, like the competitiveness, the fire, the fighting is so much fun. And with other coaches too, you're in the back room and like,
back and forth with them as well.
The cards. Yeah. And you screw with the cards, doing this and, shit talking and right. Like, it's just, I love that. I'm sure other people fucking will tell you I'm an asshole, but it's just, it's a ton of fun. I mean, that's,
that'd be a fun part in the back room of the Ollie comp, where you guys are fucking with attempts and shit just to mess with each other, eh?
Yeah, and it's like, there'll be like situations where somebody gets like a 2-minute clock because they're following themselves, right?
Yep.
And then you see this in Europeans do this all the time, but you don't see it in the US a lot because people are just nice. Like, if you've got a 2-minute clock and my lifter is like a couple kilos ahead of you on an attempt.
Yep.
I have 2 changes, so I can just drop mine down to your same number, and it switches to me. Then switch mine back up, and you lose your clock. So you have a minute left. So now, instead of getting 2 minutes to rest, you're down to a minute of rest. And like, that's doing that and executing it flawlessly, just to be a dick. I mean, because it's a competition, you want to win, right?
You're there to win.
And sometimes you win because everyone else loses.
Yep.
But so it's like, okay, like, that's doing that perfectly is just like a special joy that I have.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. That's good coaching, right? That's when you're like doing everything you can in your power to defeat everyone else in that session.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's unreal. I mean, I know for us at powerlifting, changing that third deadlift attempt to take a place or a first, like,
fucking love.
There's nothing better than seeing the coach or the athlete's face realize, like, right before that they go that, oh fuck, I've got to go up, or I have to now get this to get it because this other lifter's gone in front.
When you put in like a 60 kilo chick's third attempt deadlift at 400 and you're just like, I'm just going to leave it for a little bit. Just leave it, see what happens.
Wait and see what they call. this was something about, I don't know what it is about both sports, but like the idea of like you train super, super hard kind of by yourself and alone, and then you show up to the competition and everyone kind of reveals what they've got. It's that like that anticipation and lead up to that, like in the warm-up room or your first attempts, where it's like everyone's watching everybody else to see what's going on. Like, hell, what did this guy do? What did that guy do? That's probably diminished a little because of social media. People post everything now. But it's definitely like that aspect of these sports to me is one of the most fun parts about it, is that like it's kind of this like secret planning stuff. Everybody tries to figure out the best strategy, and you put your stuff together, and then you show up on game day and it's like, hey, well, you know, who's got it?
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
I think strategy is a big part of the sport, and it gets lost just in the element of the competition. But I think it's more effective or more enticing as a coach though, because you get to sit back and
makes it
like,
fun.
Yeah, let's fuck with someone.
Even to the point where like
sure.
you can use social media to manipulate it too, like because everyone hunts everyone on the gram. So just fuck it, just put warm-ups up.
Yeah, just be Milano.
Or just don't put anything up.
I was always trying to get my lifters to post like just fucking lies, like just post that you have been feeling like shit and you can't lift, and like put little numbers up. A lot of them like, I gotta do this because I gotta, you know, whatever, a discount code I gotta put up, whatever it is, right? Like, it's like I'm always like, just put up some bullshit about how fucking hard training is and how you're thinking about pulling out or quitting. Or like,
your elbow fucking
lie
hurts.
About it, right?
Worried about your hamstring.
Yeah, right. Like, oh man, I'm just gonna do an easy meet, just 6 for 6, and I'm just gonna, you know, I don't even care how I place. But it's also funny too, because like, you know, it's the type of personality. I mean, I have a girl like Coach Alex, who was like an All-American gymnast who grew up in a gymnastics family, so like is a hardened Eastern European style like gymnast, right? And it's like another one of those people who like, you know, shows up on game day and is, you know, a different human being than they were in the gym. And it's like, you know, seeing someone like that where it's like they're posting stuff in the training, it doesn't look amazing, right? But then you kind of have this like secret reveal at the meet where it's like, okay, hey, we got these huge numbers actually, right? It's actually way better than it looks. Is a blast, right? But that whole like getting someone like that to like find a person to like lock onto, like, hey, you know, you're gonna beat this number one girl because like look how great she is, and they'll put up posts about whatever, you know, bullshit in their life, and it's like you use that to sort of motivate them, like, you know, you kind of gotta foster that hatred, right? You foster 100%. Really unhealthy, abusive relationships with people. The coach is all about manipulation and lies.
Fuck yeah.
Love that,
mate. What's this year looking for you? I guess a bit uncertain with lockdown and crazy shit going on. But is there competitions and stuff for you guys to coach towards and stuff, or?
So we have a meet in March. The American Open Series 1 is happening, and so that's in person. So we'll do that as weightlifting, and then national championships for weightlifting, and then potentially Raw Nationals and powerlifting. Those are the two groups I've got. I got a 52 kilo girl who's neck and neck with Marissa. So like it'll be Chad and I and Marissa
battling each other.
Andy, battling each other. You know, and so now Chad knows all the super manipulative things I do. He's no different. But it's
that'll be a friendly rivalry, or we'll just leave friends alone for a little bit, and
that'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun just having, no matter what we win, right? I mean, top 2 finishers, you know. That would be the goal, but
and you'll go winning first as well.
Well, of course.
Oh, right, mate. What do you get up to your spare time outside of training, man? Or is training still your thing, bro?
I mean, you know, I've been training a lot more recently. I've been trying to like work out with my wife. We work out at very different paces, right? She goes very slow. I go really fast. So like I'm usually like, she'll warm up. I never warmed up. I've never done warm-ups when I was a lifter. You know, my first warm-up I'd tie my shoes and then go do the bar or go do 120 kilos. So like, she'll like do all her warm up and then I'll be like halfway done with half of my workout because I'm just going one set after the next. But I've been trying to like do a little more of that with her, just so, you know, we're training together more. My life consists 99% of just coaching, and that's it actually. Yeah, pretty much coaching.
That's a fucking good life, bro.
Yeah.
You're looking at two other blokes who do the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much no spare time. I guess the plan is maybe at some point when I'm done, just do nothing, right? Just be retired, and I don't know.
I don't think people like us know how to do nothing.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like, I'm like in my mind waiting for this time when like we're done, we're kind of retiring. But that to me just means like, oh, I'll just, I'll coach less people, but
Yeah.
that won't happen because there's no, if you haven't figured out by now, basically everything I've told you, there's like two speeds. It's like nothing or everything all the way, So it's like, I think that's going to happen, that like one day I'll be like, oh, I'll do less of this. And that'll be like the easy retirement life, but I doubt it. So
I doubt it, bro. Mate, we got 10 questions for you. They are...
These are our 10 rapid fire questions.
10 biggest questions you've ever been asked in your life, potentially.
All right.
By two dudes in Australia. Yep. So, yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What makes you unique?
My middle name is Montana.
Oh, that's cool.
I like it. Who are the special people in your life?
Definitely my wife and my son, and then, probably Chad, Marissa.
Nice. What is something you're most proud of?
Outside of my family, I would say the 2019 Pan American Championships. Coached a lifter. She went 6 for 6, broke American records. It was just like one of those super perfect meets.
That's unreal. If you could star in a movie, who would you be, and what movie would it be?
I don't know who I would be. It would probably be an autobiography. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson would play me, clearly.
Yep.
And it would just be about my life.
That is the most common answer. Everyone wants to be played by The Rock.
That is correct. Yeah. Everyone wants him to play them. What is your most used emoji?
Probably a thumbs up.
Yeah. The savage response.
That is a savage response to receive.
It's like one step above sending the letter K.
Yeah.
A tiny step. What was your favorite dinosaur as a kid?
Probably Tyrannosaurus.
Nice. If you could find out how and when you would die, would you?
Oh, for sure.
What age do you feel right now?
62.
Very specific. What pet did you have growing up?
We didn't have any pets. My parents told me we grew up in a log cabin in Montana the first 6 years I was there. And my parents told me I used to carry dead animals around with me. So
really?
I guess if I become a serial killer, you have evidence. Maybe
we know why.
A sign. Yeah.
We saw the signs earlier.
The early stages. Yeah. What is the best thing that happened to you last week?
Last week. Every week's the same, just blurs together. I guess the fact that I wasn't aware of it.
That's the best answer we've had to that.
I like that.
Mate, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute, yesterday for you and today for us. We'll make sense of that someday.
What's the future like? You have flying cars yet?
Man, not yet. I can tell you it's blue skies. It's probably about 29 degrees. Nice. Fahrenheit, that is. It's pretty nice today, actually.
That's awesome.
Now you're just going to make me think that we're actually in the future and I'm just going to go down this rabbit hole all day. I'll be so unproductive.
You could Google it.
No, not even a chance. Mate, for those listening, where can they find you? We'll do that classic podcast ending.
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram, Max_Aita. You can find me, you can email me about, remote coaching or any of the stuff we offer at Juggernaut at max@jtsstrength.com. And I'm on Facebook as well.
Awesome, man. We'll chuck that all up in the show notes. But again, thank you so much for your time. Really, really great to chat with yourself and definitely some good information out there for lifters and coaches, actually.
Great to meet you, bro. It's been unreal.
Yeah, you too.
Awesome. Man. Stay safe.
Thanks, guys.
Chat to you soon, bro.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, that was fun.